at a great price. And when I think about that story, I'm like, man, why don't you just say, like, yo, that's actually mine. I made it. Like, look, my initials are on the bottom. He's like, no, no, no. I'm willing to sacrifice anything and everything to make sure without question that one belongs to me. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to pray for you guys, kick you out of here. And then part of the reason I wanted you to come up was not just to play sweet music while I told my little Jeremy story. It was actually because I originally wanted some sweet walk-up music for my wife because they were playing this like Christian hip hop song in the gym last week, and I was like, "Yo, that's the one. I need you guys to play that." But I didn't give it to the guys in the back earlier in the week. So if you got something cool when I'm done praying to introduce my wife and bring her up that you can do, I don't know, something like bum 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 bum, something like that. That would be really cool. But then maybe later, Max, you can play that song in the gym when we're hanging out having sandwiches, just so people can know, like, this is my wife's walk-up music when you guys hear it playing in the gym. All right. Let me pray for the kids. Lord, thank you for these kids. Thank you for the community that you're building in them. I look at those friends up there and how much time they spend with each other throughout the week and on Sundays and in the gym and with volleyball and sports. And I look at the stories you're writing in their lives. And today we're going to look at a really cool story. And I just pray, Father, and trust. And I just want to celebrate and acknowledge that you are writing amazing stories in their lives, and I want to bless them. And I just want to bless them in your name, Lord. Bless our time. And as we kick the kids out, bless our time here together as we commune with you and are just open to what you have for us through our content this morning. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, cool. You guys are kicked out. The rest of you guys can have a seat. Thank you for staying standing. If you were, you didn't have to. And now I'm going to bring up my wife and include her in our time together in our conversation. I don't know. I put you on the spot. Dude, sure. That's great. That's great. You're good. And fail. That's my. Was that what that was? The Rugrats? That's perfect. Was that what that was? The Rugrats? That's perfect. Yes. Hey, that's good. That's a good word. That's funny you say that because when you were singing the "When Death Was Arrested and My Life Began," I was thinking about our life story and what I'm going to share. Uh, oh, there you go. Go back down, babe. There you go.
Flawless.
Just make you feel like last. Blast. I'm blessed.
Make some noise for my wife.
Get your phone, text your people, they should.
Perfect. Man, we nailed it. We're so good at this 2022 church production thing. We're so great. Have a seat, my love. Yeah, you can give me that. It doesn't matter. What side do you like? What's your good side? We can't. I guess we. Yeah. All right, this is a PG thing. All right, we're gonna try to keep it that way. So this is a little different this morning. And as I was just mentioning too, when death was arrested and my life began, I really feel like my life began again. I was born anew when maybe not when I met this woman, but when God said, "Nah, I need you guys to be together. It's time." So typically, I'm the one talking, and I'm going to do plenty of talking this morning. But I'm going to let my wife kind of start off and share a story. And yeah, this is just a little different, but it feels good, feels safe, and really pray that you guys are blessed by just kind of hearing some about our journey. Cool. So she's gonna start, and I'll fill in some gaps, and it'll be all good. Enjoy. Just be you, my love. She loves this. We're working new muscles together. Go ahead. You got it.
Love is a strong word. I like with all that attention in the beginning. It's like I'm the introvert in this bunch. I don't need all that. It's bad enough I got to sit up here, right? But yeah, we talk about our story a lot, and really being able to see lately, how powerful story is, and being able to share with people, really where how we've gotten to where we are, right? So for me, and I was just telling him this morning, like I love for him to tell the story because he's a great storyteller. When I tell it, I feel like there's always these gaps and um, I miss parts, and I have to go back, and it's spaghettiing all over the place, like women do. So I am the product of a broken home. I had a mom and a stepdad, and left home when I was 16 because of drama in my house. So I left home when I was 16. I was pregnant at 17. Um, I didn't grow up with my own dad, so because of that, I really thought I needed to keep my kids' dad around so that they would have a dad. That was very important to me for my kids to have their dad. Um, but that was drama and dysfunctional and tumultuous and just crazy, right? Um, but one thing that I say now that I can articulate very well that I never said then was that the Holy Spirit was always over my life and guiding me. When I found myself pregnant, I grew up in church. That's another part. See, he and I were going back. I grew up in church. That's another part of it. We always went to church as a family, like my entire family, aunts, uncles, grandpa. Um, and when I found myself pregnant, I started looking for a church home. I didn't have a church home. We had lived in the valley for a few years, so we never landed on a church here. I come from LA, so we had a church home there. And when I found myself pregnant, I started searching for a church home. Went to a lot of different churches in Pacoima, Panorama City. Didn't really find anything that suited me, right? Come from Black church community, so I didn't find anything that just fit well. Went to Shepherd when Brittany probably was around. My oldest is Brittany. When she was about 2, I went to Shepherd and fell in love with the church. It was the first place I had ever been where I really felt like I met God there. Like I love what you say. Like when you first gave your life to Christ, and that was the first time I surrendered my life to the Lord and developed a relationship with Him. So from that moment on, I just continued to grow spiritually throughout my young life, and gaining knowledge and raising my girls and things like that. So I knew I never wanted to bring another man into their lives. So their dad was the only man. I didn't want my girls to see that. I didn't want them to have to deal with those things. And so from Shepherd, I had some really good friends that were involved there, and they started a small church, As You Are Church. And that's where this guy comes in. He was the youth pastor. They brought him on to be the youth pastor at that church. And because it was a small church, we were like a family. We did everything together, all the kids' birthday parties and we did holidays together. We just did everything together. So he was he had a girlfriend. Sunshine was his girlfriend. They soon got married. We were all part of that, the wedding and everything. Again, they're like family to us. He literally is like a brother to me. His wife is like a sister to me. Um, and I was one of the first people that she told about when she was told that she was pregnant with Brooke. So we walked this life together. Like, again, I love them like family. And so Sunshine passed away. Very devastating to our community. We were all, it's crazy. All the women in the church were very concerned about Brooke, like who's going to care for her, really concerned about who he got with. Like, women start coming out of the woodworks. It was most eligible bachelor. It's like, what is happening here, right? Unbeknownst to me, I'm just, watching the scene unfold, and again, concerned for the daughter because I have my own girl, so I'm concerned for her. And we would pray about like who he ended up with and things like that. Yeah. So it was very sweet. And I remember one day you getting into your car, and I just walked over to him in the like outside of church and just said, "Hey, if you ever need any help with her, let me know. Like, just want to be helpful to you with her, right?" Um, So, a little bit of time went on. It all happened so fast. It seemed like there was a big stretch in those moments, but there wasn't a ton of time in there. But I was very active in youth ministry because my older daughter was in his youth ministry. So I was very active. We did a lot of rummage sales. We just did a lot of stuff. And I was always around, always volunteering. And one day he said he wanted to have a meeting with me. And I said, okay, this isn't, it's, it's not foreign for us to have a meeting or talk because we talked. I've had crying moments with him with dealing with stuff with my older daughter. So he asked me for this meeting, and then we sit down, and he said, "I want you to be my rummage sale coordinator." And I'm like, okay.
Nailed it.
Right. I'm like, okay. And it was pretty, I was like, okay.
Rummage
Yeah.
sale
Yeah.
coordinator.
Yeah.
That's good.
So I think, and even when we had the next meeting after that, like he brought me lunch to my office and we had like this formal like meeting about this rummage sale coordinator. And,
Yeah, yeah.
but at the time,
That's awesome.
but at the time he said in this meeting, he was like, well, I don't really remember how he said it, but to me,
We
it's
talked
like,
very little about rummage
we
sales.
did.
Yeah.
We did. And,
Yeah.
and he said to me, I really would like to get to know you better. And I'm like, okay. There was a little bit of, what do you mean? Like, I'm not really sure what you mean by this, but okay, we're friends. Like,
Yeah.
we've done life together. This isn't, and I'm like, okay. And so we had another meeting, and then at the next meeting, he said, no, like, really get to know you. Like, can I call you? And I'm thinking, you have my number, you can call me. He's like, no, like, call you. And then I was like, oh, like, call. I'm like sweating, and I'm like, call me, you know? Yeah. So from that moment on, developed this loose courtship because I was still married. I had filed for divorce, but my divorce was not yet final. And just to back up the story a little bit, we talked about this. Sorry, I didn't even watch the time, so I don't know how
You're
long.
good, man. You're
Okay.
good. We're just letting the lion out.
Okay.
I call her my lioness. And so you're welcome because this morning we're just letting the lion out a little bit. You guys get to experience some of that. And let me say this too, because like for any of you in our community that know Simeona, you and get to experience her when the lion comes out, like you're just like, man, this is a powerful, awesome woman that is just has a liberating presence. And I've had several of you on numerous occasions be like, man, we just need more Simi. We need people need to experience her. And how come you don't have her talk sometimes? And so you're welcome. We're just letting the lion out a little bit this morning. So you're doing amazing. This is really fun from my vantage point to hear the story. Keep going.
So just to back up a little bit, with my kid's dad, the situation was tumultuous, and he had asked me to marry him when I was 17, and I was like, no, this is chaos. I would never marry this person, right? But like I said, I was continuing to grow myself spiritually. In my walk with the Lord, it became very evident that I could not continue to be with this person and not be married to this person. So a lot of people looked at me like, "You're marrying him?" It was a lot of years later. You're crazy. You think he's going to change? I was like, no, I didn't really think he was going to change. I was being obedient to my father. It was like crap or get off the pot, like one or the other. And I made a vow to myself. I know what I'm getting myself into. Sorry.
No, I was just thinking. I don't usually hear you.
Yeah, my son would say, "Don't say that."
No.
Yeah. Anyway,
You're good. Keep going.
so in that, it was very evident to me that maybe even the blessing for me was not going to be this side of heaven. And I was okay with that because I knew where I was going, right? And so I married him to be obedient to my father, to do exactly what he asked me to do. I mean, if I could just express like all of the things that I learned growing myself and how to be a wife. And then it was like, well, I'm not really a wife. I'm single, growing myself to be single, all these things, and being in commune with the Father, doing those things, it set me up for where to the point where I could do it. I could do this. I could do this with him and never experience any I don't want to say happiness, but I had so much joy. I say it all the time, and I don't say that to be like crass in a bad situation, but the joy really does come from the Lord. So that's a little side note.
You were in
Um,
a bad situation,
I
but
was in a bad
you had
situation, but I
joy
had
out of
so
your
much
obedience.
joy out of my obedience, and I felt like He always blessed me because of it. So with that, I married him much later. I wasn't married all these years. I married him much later. So when I got divorced, I'd only been married like 2.5 years. But when I got married, it was like the scales fell off. Not like I saw him for who he was, because I always knew who he was. But there were a lot of other things going on that I wasn't paying attention to because I was too busy growing me, focused on my children, making sure they had as much of a normal life as I could provide for them, right? In this kind of crazy situation. Um, just doing whatever I needed to do in that space and be the person that God had called me to be to this man. So when all of those things happened, and then I had to file for divorce, and he came after. So it was like, wow, Lord, like this is really what you have for me. And from the moment we got together, I've always said, like, he is my gift from the Lord. He is a gift from God. I even say he is my miracle. People say, like, do miracles still happen? Yes. Yes, they do. He has given me a life that I say it all the time. It's the life I never dreamt of. It's more than anything I could have ever dreamt of because the Lord wanted me to to know what it was to feel his love. And I get it through this person. And so he asked me to marry him very early on. Right? It was crazy because we were having this courtship without anybody knowing, just to kind of keep like the church chatter out of it, to let us develop this relationship. We had some trusted relationships that we were able to spend time with. We didn't date. We didn't go out on dates because I wasn't divorced, so we were just friends. And when the divorce papers came, it was like the most glorious day. But we got to develop this relationship by ourselves, like getting to know each other with some trusted relationships. And yeah, just getting involved in that with the blended family stuff. It was tough, but the courtship was beautiful. Like I always would say to him, I don't ever want this to change. I want this to stay this way forever, not knowing that the Lord had something even better for us because our intimacy level, like our spirituality together, how we've grown together has just been so much more richer, so much more rich than I could have ever imagined in that time. Yeah. Anything you want to add to that?
Um, yeah, and then if there's anything you want to put back in, um, yeah, because we always knew each other's character, and so when it came time for us to get to know each other better and do some rummage sale coordinating, um, it was just really we were just able to really dive deep, and we both had perspective based. She came from just a really nasty situation, so she had perspective on marriage. I came from my first marriage and losing sunshine, and so I had perspective. So we came in with just a different heart for growing relationship. And at the time when I pursued her, I don't know if you mentioned this, but like she never would have hollered at me. She never would have put herself out there for me. When she mentioned one day after church walking to me to talk to me at my car, it was during a season that it's a small church. Um, I was like 28 years old, you know, single dad. Um, you know, I was I was eligible, and women were coming around making that. It's like, hey, you never came to church before, and now you're coming every Sunday dolled up. Like just seeing. And people, and then plus there were just people in our community like, hey, when you're ready, I got somebody I'd like for you to meet, and like not trying to be arrogant, but it's like I never really needed anybody's help before. I'm not asking for it now, And so I started having these kind of conversations with my pastor, like, hey, this is kind of bugging me that people are doing this. Like, can we tell them to step back? People are kind of pressing their agenda and who they think I should be on me. And then he said, yeah, I feel that. He's like, well, is there anybody you are interested in? And I'm like, well, I I am interested in Simeona, but man, she's married. And I said that with like guilt and sadness because I'm like, I shouldn't be thinking about this married woman. And he's like, well, actually, she's going to be getting a divorce. I said, really? And it was like, ah. When will that be happening? And so then that's when I came up with the brilliant idea of rummage sale coordinator. Sweet. That's gonna be perfect. She can coordinate the rummage sales. We can become friends. And it worked. It worked. It's a brilliant idea. So you guys can have, tell your tell your kids and people go with the rummage sale coordinator idea. Anyways, what other gaps to fill in? Man, you did awesome. That was great. Uh, oh, uh, yeah, we were in a space where we were being obedient, waiting for any perception of sin or I'm gonna say foul play. Just we spent hours on the phone together, just falling in love and just developing this deep, rich relationship. We shared insecurities. I would sing to her, and then so when I think about this season of life, there's a worship song called "Rescue" that comes to mind, and then obviously it's about the Lord, but like I tie it with like the Lord and God, how you use my wife to like she's my daily reminder, like tangible reminder of God's grace to me. Like every morning when she smiles at me, it's like, oh, thank you, Lord, you rescued me. And the song is, I called, you answered, and you came to my rescue, and I want to be where you are. And so when I hear that song, it's kind of an oldie now, but like when I hear that song, I really, that hits me a little different because I called and the Lord rescued me through this amazing woman. And so, um, yeah, the blended family's no joke. Just kind of get you guys caught up to speed on where we are. It's not like, I do think we're like riding off into the sunset, but like it's a long ride and there's still a journey ahead of us. So, oh, when I asked you to marry me, see, you're such a better storyteller than me. When I asked you to marry me, yeah, I did it on the phone. I don't remember where I was driving. All I know is I had this moment of impulse, which I know that surprises you, right? This impulsive moment where I just said, will you marry me? And she said, yes, 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 and yes. And that was it, man. Just, over the phone, like, hey, you see where this is going. Like, what do you, will you? Yes. It was special. So, um, I'll never forget those words. Yes, yes, and yes. Um, so that was cool. Got married, just us and our pastor on the beach. She wore jeans. I wore khakis, like Jake from State Farm. That was my dress up look for the day, and we just sat on the beach and prayed and made out and thanked God for the story that He wrote. And she had kids young. I, had a daughter, and the thing is, when Sunshine passed, she was 10 weeks pregnant. We found out it was a boy, and I was the only boy in my family, and I just kind of really grieved the opportunity of carrying on my family name. And I was glad to be rescued and in a relationship again. It was awesome. And so I wanted to give her, she had kids young. I was pretty young when we had Brooke, and it was like, you know what? Let's just get these kids out the house and let's have some selfish years together. I want to give you some selfish, time that you didn't have as like a young adult. She's like, cool. So that was the plan. And then not too long after we got married, she said, I'm having this intuition. I've never been able to have kids in a healthy familial environment. And I'm kind of having this maternal instinct. I want to have a baby. I'm sorry. And I'm like, but I was just scared. Like, truth is, I wanted it, but I was afraid. And sure enough, long story longer, she got pregnant, and we found out it was a boy. And I'll just never forget that the the doctor that did the ultrasounds for us, he always wore a bow tie. I don't know why that was his deal, but he always wore a bow tie. And um, when he told us it was a boy, I just wept. And when that boy came out, I wept. And so that's kind of our family story. I will share the significance of Quincy's name because I always like to add that in there. I was prayerful at the time about what am I going to name my son. I didn't want to take identity away from my son that I didn't get to raise on this side of heaven, Alan, named after my dad, Al. And So I was in prayer and woke her up one night like, babe, I think I know what I do know what his name is. And my father's from Quincy, Illinois. I was like, man, Quincy, that's a cool name. And he's got a good nickname, Q. That's cool. So then I went to my phone and I was like, what does that name mean? Quincy. I don't want it to be like Quincy means dork or something like, you know, but Quinn means fifth. And so Simeona had Brittany and Alicia, Brooke, and then Alan that went to be with the Lord with my first wife, and then Q's number 5. So that was such a divine God wink on the story. So over the past 5 years, we've been a part of Christ Community Church, this our church here, and with you guys. And just one other thing to throw in there is because we value marriage. Most of you guys know this, but we go to counseling every 2 weeks. We were just with Bert last Thursday, and we cherish the redemptive work that God has done in our lives, and just wanted to celebrate that and share that with you guys this morning. So this is really kind of untraditional for us, but you know what? I feel like God's calling us to just be us and do things however He leads us to be authentically us in our community. So thank you for embracing this uh, part with us. And the reason that it's relevant to the Ruth story is because I'm not trying to allegorize. We're not trying to allegorize the Ruth story, which we actually read this morning. Challenge you guys to read Ruth this week. It's 4 chapters. How long did it take us? Like 20 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. And I'm a slow reader. Plus Stanley called at one point, so like maybe 20ish minutes, and it'll probably take you about 15 minutes to read. I challenge you guys to read it. If you are married, I challenge you to read that together sometime this week, and just front to back. Uh, but the story of Ruth is the story of redemption, kind of like the sailboat story that I shared about Jeremy before we started. And just a beautiful love story. Again, not trying to allegorize it, but the thing is, God is rarely mentioned in the Ruth story. Uh, he's only mentioned a couple times in these 4 chapters, and but it's so obvious that he's at work in the divine orchestration of these everyday life situations. And so as we are proud and excited to share our story, and I challenge you to read this beautiful Ruth story, it's also a challenge to embrace the story that God is writing in each of our lives, and to be excited and to be in anticipation of the redemptive moments, to dig back into the photo booth of the journey you've been on, and to celebrate and be excited about the redemptive moments you've already had. And how does he still want to use this? Because he's still a great God who calls great people to be a part of a great plan. That's still who he is. And so when you look at the Ruth story, Ruth is a daughter-in-law to a woman named Naomi. Now Naomi was one of God's people. She was a Jew, an Israelite, and she moved away with her husband and 2 sons. They got married to Moabite women who were not Jewish women. But Naomi ends up losing her husband and both her sons. And so then she gets to a place where she's like, all right, girls, you've been so faithful. You've been a part of our family, but I have nothing to offer you anymore. Go back to your homes, go back to your families. And they're like, no, we want to stay with you. And then she's like, no, seriously, go. And so one of the daughter-in-laws, daughters in love, however you like to say it, went back to her Moabite family. The other, Ruth, who the story is about, named after, decides, no, I'm staying with you. Don't ask me to leave you again. Let me read that part real quick. You can go there if you want to, if you're quick with your Bible. Otherwise, some of it will be on the And this Ruth story, you'll see from the first verses of the book, takes place during the time of Judges. Ruth, I'm gonna do 15. Sorry guys, I know I only gave you 16, but I'm gonna go 15 through 17. From now on, when I give you guys verses, you should just say cool, and then add one or two from before and one or two afterwards. It says, uh, then she said, Naomi, behold, your sister in law has gone back to her people and her gods. Return after your sister in law. But Ruth said, do not urge me to leave you or turn back from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. Thus may the Lord do to me, and worse, if anything but death parts you and me. And let me add 18. When she saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more to her. Later on, the Ruth is described by the. She's known amongst the city, amongst the town, and amongst this community. She's known as a woman of excellence, and I just love that caveat because I can't read that and not think like, man, this is my woman of excellence, my woman of noble character. And for those of you who know her, would for sure say amen to that. Um, so an inspiring love story. So Naomi goes back to her hometown around her Jewish community, and Ruth goes with her. Ruth ends up meeting this guy Boaz. Now back then there was this idea um, of a kinsman redeemer. Kinsman meaning close family member who can redeem your life story and your family line, your family lineage, and the inheritance of your family. So Naomi had lost it all. She had no man or son to kind of take over the land that she owned. So she was just kind of in a place where she was going to have to sell it unless some other close family member could say, no, I'll take that inheritance. I'll take the responsibility. So Ruth ends up meeting a close family member named Boaz. Now Boaz is just a stud. He's an older guy. He's not married, but he's a great man. He's wealthy. He's well off. He's got great character, similar to the way Ruth's character is described is Boaz's character. And she miraculously crossed paths at the perfect time with Boaz, and it wasn't manipulated. It was a work of the Spirit. It was this beautiful story written by the Spirit of God, where God connects Boaz and Ruth. Ruth comes back to her mom and with a whole bunch of food, or mother-in-law, but comes back to Naomi, and Naomi's like, "Where'd you get all this food?" And she said, "Oh, I got it from this guy Boaz." She's like, "No way, you met Boaz? Like, he's one of our close relatives." And um, so so basically um, they have a conversation where they talk about becoming each other's rummage sale coordinator. I'm gonna let you guys read it. It is. It's the rummage sale moment. It's a rummage sale coordinator moment. It's perfect. It's the I'd like to get to know you better moment. And then Boaz's armpit starts sweating and then they work it out. So another caveat to this is Boaz is a man of character. He's like, look, I'm excited about this. This is cool. This is a good idea. We should be together. But there's another relative that's closer, and he's got kind of the first right of refusal. So Boaz says, like, I'm gonna work this out today. I'm gonna go talk to him. If he wants to redeem you and the land, then you're gonna be his wife. So he meets with this other guy. I don't think they mentioned his name. Yeah, he blew it. He let the bondwoman pass it by, but he blew it. The caveat about this is Boaz goes to him and says, "Hey, there's some land available to you in our family line. Would you like to buy it?" He's like, "Yeah. Would you like to redeem it? Are you kidding me? Inherit real estate? Like, heck yeah, I'm down." He said, "Cool. The only thing is, excuse me, you're going to have to be responsible for Ruth, this young woman, and you got to marry her." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm not really down for all that. I'm not really looking for a relationship." This guy was just worried about the material. But Boaz knew the deeper, more important, most valuable thing, which was this relationship with this great woman, and everything else was like cherry on top, icing on the cake, like extra. He's like, but I want the woman. I believe Boaz didn't care about the land. He didn't need the land. He wanted the woman. So just kind of a cool caveat too of like, I think when we in our culture, it's just paradoxical to our culture. Go after, oh, he's got a car, he's got a great job, oh, he does this, oh, he's rich, girl, oh, and he goes to church. It's like, nah, dude, like these people were looking for deep relationship, and that's what's celebrated is character in this story, and God's awesome redemptive work and the beautiful story He wrote. Um, so here's what where we will end on. You guys know, the Bible is filled with like lists of lineages and name after name after name after name. Does anybody just skip over that sometimes? Yeah, truth. I get it. I've actually because of my personality, believe it or not, I'm somebody that likes to check the box, and it's like I get this guilty conscience where it's like, okay, if I don't read every single word, I didn't actually read it. The Lord's delivered me from that, but now that He's delivered me from that, I actually now want to read all the names. And so if you look at the beginning of the book of Matthew, which a lot of us, when we start reading the Bible, we start in the New Testament, we start with Matthew, and it starts off with, oh, come on, Lord, I thought I avoided the list of name stuff. Like that's all in the Old Testament, right? Well, Matthew was somebody who loved the Old Testament and was writing to a Jewish audience, so he gives this list of names. And the unique thing about his list of names is he starts from Abraham and goes all the way to Jesus. And um, in that, there's about I think it's 5 different women that are mentioned in his list of genealogy from Father Abraham all the way to the Messiah. And that's a big deal because the Jewish community would be like, yo, why are you throwing these women in there? And he's like, because God used these women to write the story of salvation through mankind, and you can't leave them out. And so Ruth is one of those women. So not only is it a beautiful redemptive story for this family, but it's a beautiful redemptive story within the beautiful redemptive story of mankind, the salvation story of mankind. And so, how awesome to remember that our God is so great. And when people are loyal to Him, they become great people. And when you take a great God with great people, He writes a really great plan. I think we're good. Cool. You were amazing. Yeah, you are amazing. I love you so much. We celebrate 11 years of marriage next week, next Sunday. Yeah. Yeah, it deserves a much better clap than that, but don't do it again. Um, cool. So what we're gonna do now is Rush. Do you have another song for us? You do? So good. Sweet. Would you come up, play some music, and then there's traditional communion in the back. Since it's first Sunday, what we like to do is we like to commune together. And so at your leisure, you can go up to the back between the two couches and help yourself to bread and juice if you want to.